Well, thank you to all our speakers. So we now have a good hour for any questions or comments. All I would ask is to speak up. We don't have a roving mic, and if you just say who you are, because even though it's kind of a formal setting, we want people to be able to address each other by their names. So who'd like to start?
My name is Irene Harper. I'm a member of the Ulster Unionist Party. I'm surprised at the bias here this afternoon. Why are there not more people from the Protestant Unionist community? I remember every morning I woke up in the late 60s to hear of another policeman shot dead, his grieving widow and children. Now, I would like to have heard more balance in the remarks and the reportage here this afternoon. I just want to make that comment.
Do you think you see Unionists, Protestant or Catholics in the panel? What you see is victims, and victims only. And I can call all these my friends. And I don't think it's good to go down the road of balance. There is no balance. When we spoke about what had happened, we spoke about state actors or paramilitaries who carried out these atrocities. It doesn't go along with politicians. Don't see any politicians on this panel. There's a reason for it, and I think it's already been answered.
It's a victims-led issue, and unfortunately, the reality moving forward is that victims-led issues are from the roots up, and Mr. McCord should be commended for this, because political unionism has failed and obviously will continue to fail until it addresses the very nature of its observations on the conflict in the past. Because we all believe, whether we're unionist, loyalist, Republican, nationalist, or otherwise, and we all want a better future. But until we address our past, and until we have a united front moving forward with regard to the victims and not with our political prejudices, this victims issue isn't going to go away. Unfortunately, the victims themselves and their families are going away because people are dying, and I think that the matter needs to be addressed immediately. And these type of comments about us and them and whatever this lady's point of view was, I don't think they're relevant anymore. And I think that the youth of Northern Ireland are engaged in the process, and hopefully things moving forward will be positive, because I don't accept for 1 minute that this is a biased forum, that this is a jaundiced forum, a sectarian forum. I've met these victims before, I've engaged with them and their families before, and none of them has ever raised with me their religion or their politics. But what they do raise is their heart, and it continues, and it's ongoing. Thank you.
I'm from the unionist community and believed in the police force of Northern Ireland. And for me, it was a shock to find out that the police had covered up the murder. And we lived with the threat of my father, under threat from paramilitary organisation. We grew up with that threat because he served in the security forces. This is not about who was shot or how many people was shot. This is about what victims are left to deal with every day after their loved one's murder. And it doesn't matter who carried out the murder. The victims are all the same at the end of it.
Sorry, Raymond would like to respond.
First of all, I, along with Cathy, from the unionist community, my son served in the Royal Air Force. That's his photo. My father served in the Royal Air Force. My family has a history of serving in the Army, in the Air Force during the First and Second World War. I come from a very strong unionist family, and at the time it was only the official unionists. I didn't vote for any of the unionist parties, ever. I listened to my parents growing up, and there was a lot of arguments themselves, because I grew up in Rathcoole. And over the years, people are entitled to their political beliefs, but their political beliefs shouldn't involve turning a blind eye to murders within their own community. I see a lot of people in Rathcoole, and you talk about a balance, houses being attacked. When you went out to try and people who you grew up with, you Roman Catholic lads, you run the streets with me in Rathcoole, and their houses being hit, and you go out to try and stop it, the abuse of God. And talking about unionism, my father was a paramilitary. I wasn't. Within the McCord family, greater family, there was a lot of paramilitaries. Thank God I wasn't. I had no interest in it. And you know, most of those ones in my family don't speak to me, and they're all unionist voters. But the reason they're unionist voters, a lot of them there, because what appealed to a lot of them was the sectarian politics that was here in Northern Ireland. Right? So I completely disagree with you. There is a balance here, because what the balance is, John's father was murdered by the army. Michael's son was murdered by the real IRA. Cathy's sister was murdered by the UDA, and her sister's son was murdered by UVF, and my son was murdered by UVF on Mount Vernon, which I'm sure you as a unionist would agree that there on what the police ombudsman would do. The police ombudsman report came out 11 years ago this January, which stated there was collusion. The first case in the history of the Troubles, there was collusion in my son's case between the police and the UVF. And from those, and that time from January 2007, more and more evidence has come out. We only have to look at the Haggerty case here. The man was an informer from 91. He's admitted to over 500 crimes while working for the police. And all that during that time, our politicians who are supposed to be representing Cathy and me and our families stayed silent.
At the back. Oh,
John,
sorry, John. Michael.
You're okay.
Yes.
Well, if I could say that my family is both Catholic and Protestant. My grandfather and grandmother on one side was Presbyterians, and then the other side was Catholic, and I was raised as Catholic. My family have served the British military for almost 200 years, and I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of all the good things that I've had. All the good things that are British, I am proud of. All the good things that are Irish, I am proud of. But yeah, I would say the vast majority of policemen who put on their uniform every morning and left their family to go out and do their duty were ordinary, decent people. Soldiers, likewise. We are victims here because of some people didn't do their job. And for the people who have carried on in the way we have heard of, there's only one way I can describe them, and they are criminals in uniform. And whether you're unionist or nationalist, you have to accept that. We've got serious issues with the Irish government. We have serious issues with the British government. We have no agenda. We're not here. We're here to concentrate on the things that unite us rather than the things that divide us. And I think, yes, it's very difficult for the unionist community to accept that the police force and the military have done bad things here. But just as Raymond has said, if you go across the water, if a policeman or a soldier does a bad thing, he's a criminal and he's put in jail. But here the police have been sacred cows. You can touch the ambulance drivers, you can take the firemen or the Coast Guard, but not the police. And I say the majority of police and military serve their country well, and it's wrong for them to be blackened in the way they are. But I don't think, on the other hand, that we should ignore some of the very serious issues that have happened here.
This lady here at the front.
Hi, thank you very much for your contributions. Sadly, I'm not a student at Queens. My name is Charlotte Other. I'm an academic here, as some of you know. My question really was to Raymond, and obviously I agree with you before you there, in regards that there needs to be much greater openness and facilitating of truth and justice for victims and survivors of the conflict in Northern Ireland. I was wondering, could I get your reflections on Justice Tracy's ruling in respect to the Glenanne gang, and whether you thought that gave perhaps a chink of opportunity or pointing towards some greater openness in respect to dealing with the past?
Well, I was there at the court, and I was delighted to hear a good friend Eugene sitting there front invited me down. I was delighted to come. Because I was going down there to sit with families who weren't Catholics or Protestants, right? We're all victims, right? Innocent victims, right? For too long, the justice system and the judges have failed the victims. Delay after delay. John is probably more experienced than that there, the number of years ago his father was murdered. And at long last, we've got a top judge turning around saying enough's enough. And I welcome it, right? They've a bit to go, but still, again, yesterday we thought there was going to be a complete ruling, and that was it. But the police have appealed it. And again, talk about the expenses and all this here. We hear certain politicians talking about expenses. So money's put before justice here by certain politicians when it suits them, right? And when it suits them is when it's their side, right, fighting for justice, rather than what they would deem the other side, right? But again, we've got a judge there, and you know, Eugene's sitting there. You know, he had 3 brothers murdered, totally innocent men. Sat in their home and murdered. 2 died there, and the other young lad died a short time later. And they died because their religion. They didn't die because they were bad men. Like that there. And that happened right across the country. And I hope the judge's ruling that more cases will be dealt with and victims will stop having to wait so long for it.
Anybody else like to comment on this? John, you want to come in?
No, see, there was a time there where, and we were talking Eugene and ourselves, we were talking earlier on, and like, I'm a builder on the building site, and we were talking like these solicitors. That come on where the burden of the families, the victims' families, doing their own investigation and continue to gather evidence where other agencies will be doing. And I think and for ourselves, the Balmercy family, to get a date for an inquest, we've been waiting on since 2011 from where we're granted the inquest. We actually applauded the judge making a decision, and he made a decision where he couldn't give us a date for this year. He actually was over a year later that he can give us a date, and it was a fairness thing, and that's the first time, and our legal team has said the same, first time they've ever seen a judge been clapped in such a way for somebody who's given a decision a year down the line.
Student here at Queens, and I just wanted to comment, just I suppose on the length of time that these are all kind of campaigning for justice. I have an uncle, and he is one of the disappeared, and he was found there in Maytown, Seamus Ruddy, and we waited 32 years to get him home. And I think it's very, very important that, you know, that you continue on fight and keep going all the time. And I do know as a family it is so tough and so hard to keep going, and I understand, like, it's, you know, but that ripple effect whenever you have somebody murdered in your family, you know, as a result of the trouble, regardless of how they are murdered, the fact they're taken from you, that has a total ripple effect, and it goes down through the generations. You know, it doesn't just affect the brothers and sisters, it has affected all of us, all the nieces and nephews, and it's gone down and down, you know, and that's why I think it's so important. People who are victims are listened to, and young people that are born now, you know, the young people that are here and are students at Queens, you know, they may well not have experienced that in their family, and I just think there's a massive difference in terms of your family unit. If you have experienced that loss, you know, in particular if you don't have answers, you know, and I can only empathise with this, you know, whenever you're talking about things like collusion and all of that, and especially once you're talking about, you know, the state and the police and that, because that's very, very, very difficult system to break through and to get the answers. So I just commend you. That's all I'd like to say.
Thank you. Would anybody like to respond?
We have talked here and about collusion. And the thing about collusion is, I didn't believe in existence. I was like Cathy. Right? We thought it was Republican propaganda. I found out, my family found out that hard way it wasn't. it's anything but Republican propaganda. My son was murdered. I go to his grave tomorrow on his anniversary, and I not be thinking about collusion tomorrow. I'll be thinking just what he was like. But people have to understand too, right? But we believed there was, didn't believe it was collusion, and Cathy was like myself too. Found out the real hard way, right? When you go to the cemetery and the headstone. But collusion wasn't a one-sided thing. The security forces infiltrated all the paramilitary groups. Senior Republicans were working for the state, as well as senior Protestant paramilitaries, and I don't call them loyalists, right? They're, and it gets me at times when I see people call them loyalists. These were gangsters. Loyalists are people that's loyal to a country. I'm not an English teacher when I take a look at the word loyalist, and loyal to your country, right? These are people, right, who murdered people at will, still murder people, sell drugs to the communities, extort money, and still work for the state. But the difficulty with collusion is with the politicians, let's say within Cathy and my community, is unionist politicians don't want and haven't faced the truth, and the fact is collusion is still going on here. And you see, until that stops, the four of us here along with $1,000 will still be fighting for justice.
Anybody else like to respond? Cathy?
I agree with Raymond. It's going to take, I believe, maybe another 1 or 2 generations, and it's young people like yourselves that are going to look at it and not be biased about politics. You're Catholic or you're Protestant. It's not about that for victims. It's about truth and justice, and it doesn't matter what part of the community you come from. My own children have grew up in a mixed friends, mixed family, but they've been affected by what happened in our family. So I think it's going to take another, in my opinion, it's going to take another generation. But while we have people that are denying the collusion happened, and politicians that are sitting in government that won't even release funds for the Lord Chief Justice, who is the highest judge in the land, as far as I know, to carry out what he wanted to carry out, the politicians are still holding up any movement for victims or families.
This man at the front.
My name is Raymond. I just recently graduated in July. I'm only 23, and every August I march with John, the Gallagher down to O'Donnell's Club in support of the Parliamentary Massacre campaign. And I'll be honest with you, I don't want to be there next August, because if I think of our politicians, the last class too, from 98 right up to now, give a shit about you people, they would have sorted it in the Good Friday Agreement. There was no proposals in the Good Friday Agreement to deal with victims. And I feel that from St Andrews onwards to the Stormont House, they didn't really care. Because you might never get a voice in this consultation. So the politicians in all the parties given actual care in the world, they would have dealt with this, and as a 23-year-old, we wouldn't be sitting here having talk about this, because victims' issues has now become transgenerational. When I stand with John Taggart and Ortiz next August, there's going to be people who are younger than me saying I'm here to support my grandfather, my father, my uncle, my cousin, and that shouldn't be the case. So what I'm asking you is, because you are the people at the heart of it, I'll be honest with you, at the minute these only people who look like they care, because the current politicians I feel don't across all the parties. If you don't get your voice, if the Stormont House proposals aren't put out for a consultation, do we change the process? We saw with policing, we asked Lord Patton to do it. We didn't seek agreement between the 5 main parties or the 2 largest parties. We let Patton take the flag, we let Patton make the changes, and we haven't got a perfect police force because we lost 50-50 and they're holding back files, and we've seen some of your families see the facts. But we've moved on. We have a PSNI which Catholics are joining, regardless of the numbers, it's sitting at 25%. So I'm asking you, if you don't feel you'll get your voice in this consultation, which, to be honest with you, it's not looking good. Will you ask that the process is changed to less of a patent-driven one, rather than one that is dependent upon Sinn Féin DUP agreement?
John?
Thanks very much, Stuart. It's complicated here then. We're really, for these mechanisms, the HIU and all the mechanisms, it was already been agreed in the Free Trade Agreement. For them to be implemented, there needs to be agreement on it. But taken away from the local politicians, that for the HIU would have been agreed, but there was a part that was put on it, and in layman's terms, that the British state would have the last say of what has been delivered to the families. So if you go back until the HET, where they were handed reports, these reports will be scrutinised and redacted as some of the evidence is coming through for ourselves, for the families. So what use would the end product be for the families if they're going for truth, and there was truth that there was state involvement, there was collusion, the government of the day had given the orders on the day, and that's going to be redacted. So what use would then the mechanisms be? So at the moment, what we have, it isn't great. It isn't great what we have. But we have a legal system who's fighting to be balanced, to be honest. And if you've got people in place there who clearly you can see that there is a mechanism there. It's a truth recovery mechanism by the families and the coroner's court. But again, it's choked. It's choked by political disagreements, where Cathy's already mentioned the Lord Chief Justice. Lord Chief Justice, for a small amount of money, which was 10 million a year, dealing with the deaths of 95 civilians, and that mechanism put in place for the people who come through the legal system after. Even a thing like that there by the Lord Chief Justice that has office in the legal system was denied. It was denied by legal disagreements, and in the end, it was allowed to happen by the British government at the time, which would have been feasibility.
Anybody else like to respond, Michael?
Yeah, I think that what you see here is a diverse group of victims from different backgrounds and different points of view. My experience has been that when the victims get together, whatever their background or circumstances are, we can generally agree on things. It's the politicians that can't agree. But what worried me about the Stormont House, and what still worries me about the Stormont House agreement, is that the definition of the Troubles was from 1969 to April 1998. That was the block, that was a period that was considered to be the Troubles. Well, we learned by accident that that period was extended, or the proposal is to extend it to 2004. Our incident happened on, well, I fall under both categories, because my brother was a victim of the Troubles and my son was a victim of the peace, if you like. But what worries me is when I asked the politicians, who was it that made that decision to move it from April 1998 to 2004? Now, in fairness to all the politicians, Sinn Féin, DUP, we've met with them. And it was the Chief Constable suggestion that they moved that to 2004. Well, the effect that would have on us is we would be then considered to be victims of the Troubles. And if you had any process that was going to look at, like the HIT was going to look at the investigations, we were going to be put back 40 years. That would have been the fact of it. We were going to be. So I think on these agreements, we don't have privy to them. They decide and move it forward. I think that's scary.
Right.
It's strange. There's been so many agreements brought out during the Troubles, and the Troubles was supposed to be finished, and that finished. ceasefires were declared in 84. My son was murdered in 97. And from that ceasefire in 94, the UVF, within my own community, the UVF has murdered 31 Protestant people. There's convictions in one incident, was 2 young lads murdered in Tondrogee, and the reason there was convictions because one of the people walked in the police station. So the success rate is nil. It wasn't IRA was killing the people in my community, the real IRA, whatever it was. It was people that was working for the state. All those agreements, storming the house in Andrews, I've never read one of them. You know, and there's people who would read them. And respect all the people that read them and see that there, see what it says. I have never read one of them. And people would say, well, why not? Because those agreements won't give me justice for my son. Won't give me justice for my son. Won't give justice for any of the 3 people sitting here. We won't get justice for the police. Starts being honest and hand the documents over what happened. Eugene's brothers, the Reeve family won't get justice. The Good Friday Agreement, St Andrews, whatever else there is, there are all these different agreements, lost count them. Right? I've never read a page in one of them, because it won't do my son any good, and it won't do my family any good. Because we know right well, and we've seen it, they're only words, and they mean absolutely nothing.
Thank you. John, at the back here.
My question is more about, Terry talked about the transgenerational harm. Part of the Storm House Agreement that we're working at is talked about having a trauma mental service, which would help people and help the next generation deal with this. They deal with losing their parents, their siblings, their even grandchildren, coping with that sort of transgenerational harm. What are your views on things moving forward? There is a legacy consultations, very much focused on truth and justice, which need to be done, which we done 20 years ago. But what about these other areas like of sort of rehabilitation and reparation when it comes to the psychological harm or the physical harm for those who are injured? I'd just like to hear your views on that moving forward.
John?
See, on all the victim sector, what you'll find is, and you mentioned one of I'm not bringing out one in the play, but I'm talking about them all. They're all NGOs, and they'd be the ones who would be getting all this money and this grant and things. But what about the individuals who don't deal with the NGOs? What about the individuals who need the support? We're a big campaign. There's a lot of families and a lot of support from the local committee for ourselves. But what about the individuals, the likes of Cathy and Raymond and Megan? What happens there? So where is their needs going to be addressed? I don't believe this is. Are they going to be needs assessments and all these different things? Going down that road, I wouldn't be inclined to go along lines of complementaries and things like that. It's just to be straight. Yeah. It's you're giving jobs to certain people, and the victims. The money should be centred straight to the victims, and not to victims groups and things like that. And I may be criticised for it, but that's my belief, you know.
Right.
First of all, the planner point that John made them on. At Queens at Cathy and me were sitting there and we were saying that wasn't a balanced one there. There was people there, 2 victims sitting, in fact 3 victims sitting in the Gallagher. They could have invited Cathy, myself, and our friend was with us. They sat at the front, that wasn't done, right? And it's what I'm saying, and the intention of Kieran McAvoy is good, make no mistake of it. I'm not criticising for that, criticising the representation he has in the panel, right? No, but let me finish, please. Let me finish. No, I understand it. I know. If they can't turn up, there's other people there who could have stepped on the panel. But it's very. But let me say, you're saying about the health thing, right? we have a process here for victims, right? We've got a victims commissioner and we've got a chief executive in the VSS. Not one of them's a victim. And John's quite right what he's saying. It's going to, a lot of money's going to big groups, so it is, right? Rather than the individuals. The groups then, if they have a chief executive or whatever title they have, goes to meet the funders. It's that person's particular views it's represented, not the group, right? That's the way, and that's wrong. That's wrong, right? And what's wrong too is after all the years of troubles, and people like yourselves having a fight each day, you know, and there's days it's really hard, right? Particularly anniversaries like tomorrow. And we're going to people who're supposed to be looking after our interests, who has no experience of it. They might have went to university, they might have degrees and this and that, right? Very intelligent people. But the point where we're coming here today, so people can grasp where we're coming from. The people that appoint them are usually people that storm it. And OFM, DFM sign them off, Deputy First Minister and Deputy First Minister. They're signing off for people as a victims for a commissioner who's not a victim. And when goes to meetings, represents our own opinion of it, not our opinions, right? If we're going to have a commissioner for victims, let it be a victim. If we're going to have someone in charge of the VSS, right, let it be a victim. You know, there's thousands of us. We can't all be stupid.
Michael,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with John and Raymond. What has been built on the backs of our pain as an industry, a very profitable industry. And, you know, I am part of a victims group, a victims group that's very active. I would rather not be part of a victims group because I have spent the best part of 20 years trying to get truth and justice for the people that died in Oma. But I feel that you have no idea how much money's been spent and the way it's being spent. Let it, as Raymond says, let it be victim focused. Come out and ask the victims. And Raymond's quite right. I have seen this for the past 20 years. There are people standing up and they're very strong and they're very vocal, but they are victims representatives. They are not victims. They don't feel the pain and they're creating an industry for themselves. Certainly, from our point of view, the last time we met the Victims Commissioner, we told her we had absolutely no faith in her whatsoever. And I think there needs to be some root and branch reform. I went in 2004, I have a very strong link with Spain. The first time I went there was 2004. It was an auditorium where there was 2,000 people, and the victims commissioner was wheeled onto the stage because he had lost both his legs in a Netta car bomb. And almost to a man, everybody in that auditorium stood up and clapped him. And I thought, this must be somebody who's doing good things for victims. I could say if the victims commissioner came in here today and it was victims that were here, I couldn't see the same response. And Raymond's right. Let that person be elected by the victims and not selected for the job. That's the important thing.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Savannah Dodd. I'm a PhD student in anthropology here. And last year, as part of my research, I had the opportunity to listen to a panel discussion of 3 individuals, ex-loyalist man, paramilitary man, ex-Republican paramilitary, and an ex-military person. And they were talking about their roles and how they felt about having been perpetrators and sort of having reformed and having come around. But they also sort of spoke about themselves as being victims in some way of the climate and academia a little bit about like these distinctions between perpetrators and victims. But I'd like to know how you feel about that and language around that.
Well, in my community, I certainly would agree that there is men that got themselves involved in things, and you could be classed as victims of the Troubles maybe, because they joined organisations maybe in today's society. And I'm not saying all of them, but within certain areas, the paramilitaries have now taken over the community role, and they've never been involved in the Troubles or whatever name you want to put on them. You know, they've never been served jail terms or anything else. But they're being held to a high esteem. But they're paramilitary members, and they're controlling their own communities through drugs and intimidation and everything else. And that's very hard for victims, and it's very hard for communities and working class communities to watch these men rise up and be taken with respect by government ministers. And one in particular actually done a fact-finding mission with the victims commissioner, and the victims commissioner couldn't answer questions to a victim on why he was taken on a peace-finding mission. So there's a difference between men that have maybe 30 years ago and the paramilitaries that we have today. I think there has to be even if it comes down to the Good Friday Agreement where it's quit their paramilitaries, but the paramilitaries of today are just criminals, and I think they need to make that quite clear and stop giving, because I believe that the British government and the Northern Ireland government is giving them powers that they're using to control the younger generation.
Raymond and John.
I agree with everything that Cathy's saying. What we have, and coming from a unionist community, paramilitaries run our estates, run our districts, with a blessing of the police and the blessing of we've seen there with the UP. What's happened, right? And you have to be really honest and frank about it here. Right? The politicians, we've seen that SIF thing on TV and the money given over to Charter and I know. That's just there, something right across the Protestant areas. Right? The people that's running community groups, housing groups, are all paramilitaries. And they're not just ordinary paramilitaries that we use the term foot soldiers, it's the man at the top that runs it. So what we have are our politicians who talk about democracy and respect. It's trying to bribe paramilitaries. And since it's, trying myself, are bribing the paramilitaries. Right? There's no future in that. You know, the paramilitaries years ago were small. They built up, and the politicians have helped to build a bigger monster now. These people want to do that. By all means, let them do it. But be men, whatever that is, done in this community, it'll be the male side of it. Let them stand in elections. We read in Nolan, as Cathy's referring to, right? I know he's just talking, right? These people appear on TV, on the Nolan show and all this here, as a community rep. We ask them, what community do they represent? Well, they certainly don't represent the Protestant people that I know.
Just before the answer to the question, around the local NGOs, the local NGOs are led by victims, and I could just think of numerous ones who are in these and work in the NGOs who are victims. Just want to clear a bit up. But I think if the question was, are the actors within the conflict, are they victims? And in a way, they are. From my own community, I've seen friends who I believe would never, have grown up and would never have joined any paramilitary organisation or carried out acts or been involved in an organisation who done terrible atrocities on both sides of the community. And for them, I would think what happened from the start of the trouble is that, they would have been victims also, but at the same time, you still need to come back to evidence base. Say somebody within my community or other community or the state forces, whether the RUC or the thing, if there's evidence and evidence based there, they should be prosecuted, and that's the way it should be along. And for a thing like that there for victims, in the end, there's crimes carried out, and if there's evidence to support that they carried out the crimes, I would think it should be prosecuted.
Gentlemen, right up the back there.
Brian Gallagher, I'm a joint honours student in history and anthropology. My question is concerning the politics of it. Would you say that the politicians are as much responsible for creating victims as the ones that squeeze the triggers? And in that, with their commission, that they don't want a victim on because it will show the hypocrisy of the politicians, both here and in Britain.
Yeah, I hold certain politicians responsible for creating victims. The rhetoric that came out years ago, and still used, and what they done years ago, the rhetoric that came out years ago, and still used, and what they done years ago, the way they spoke, to get people the blood boiling, get the young lads to join the paramilitaries. But we look back at, and I seen it in Rathcoole, seen it down Tigers Bay, where a lot of family live, and politicians taking salutes from parading paramilitary groups. As years went by, the politicians have went from that to secretly supporting paramilitaries. You know, how can you have paramilitaries still here 20 years after the Good Friday Agreement? How can you have politicians still agreeing to fund paramilitary groups? You know, when victims are crying out for proper service and justice and the truth, and they say that the hospitals, the kids, the schools, the money isn't there, for all good causes, but they've no problem giving money to paramilitaries. They're keeping the paramilitaries in place. Right? There's murders still taking place by paramilitaries, you know. So while the politicians are still persistent with their actions, they're helping squeeze the triggers. Yes, I agree with you.
Anybody else like to respond?
Yeah, likewise, I think that on both sides there, I mean, we've seen it on both sides, that sometimes it's in politicians' interest to divide us, and, you know, there's, well, I think that, you know, I feel the maturity of the politicians is lacking. I think that if you look across the border, we have had a government there now for 100 years, and the politicians are only starting to get mature. I think I agree with Cathy, I think it will take a long time for politicians. They're always looking over their shoulders to see what their followers are saying instead of leading from the front. That's where we've got the problems.
Yourself?
Hi, I'm Josie. Thank you for speaking. I'm an MA history student, and my research focuses on the Troubles. And obviously, you can tell I'm English, and I was through at the time of the Friday Agreement, so I have a certain distance from it. My question is actually building off what Michael was saying about there being an industry around victims groups, and it's really about research. And do you find, I don't know if you've been approached by researchers, obviously you're speaking here today to a group of students, do you find it frustrating being approached or talking to research academics or students when your voice isn't being heard by the stuff by the politicians and by the police force? Or do you find it positive that you're able to speak to a group of students about, your life and what you've...
Yeah, Michael. and then Cathy and then John.
I personally would have no problem talking to the group of researchers. I would probably get more benefit out of talking to a group of researchers and students than I would out of politicians or policemen. So that wouldn't be a problem for me. Because your voice isn't being heard by anybody else. And the only way forward, I've said it before, is maybe not this generation, but the next generation. Because I believe that the younger generation don't want to live in the Northern Ireland that we live in. They want to change.
Michael?
And I welcome the opportunity to meet and speak and share our experience, because there's one thing that I grew up in the shadow of the Second World War, and you've often heard people say, well, my grand or my father, whatever, was a soldier, but he never speaks about the war. Yet when we see these films on TV, it's all glamorous and great. And I think, I think that my big concern is that young people, a young person said to me recently, oh, you're lucky, you grew up on a very exciting time. Well, it wasn't really a very exciting time. It was probably one of the most tragic times in our history. So, whether you're an academic or whatever you are, I think it's important to hear the views and the voice of the victim. And I applaud John and Raymond for creating this opportunity here.
John?
What Raymond has phoned me and says about the doing the thing in the event in university, I have said to him, definitely, I will do it, because what you find with events like this here, you get the young students, they ask the right questions. And an example of young people's minds from very early age, my granddaughter, Joanna Rose, she sees photos of my dad on the thing, and she was, from early age, she would say, who's that? I said, that's Danny, my daddy. And says, what happened? And I said, bad soldiers shot him. And what did the police do? So, you know what I mean? Right away, a 6-year-old coming and saying, and what did the police do? And I had to explain, no, but they've done that, and they haven't done that until today. Because I'll be honest with them as well, I don't feed into them, but if they ask a question, I will answer honestly. And I think it's great if young people are taking interest in this, and they don't come with the baggage that we have, come through a conflict and things like that there, and they do ask the right questions, and they do put the right material into the media.
Right.
We're all like to work with researchers, right? To tell them really what happened. You know, for me today, it's trying to put across to students what it was really like, right? That Michael, at the point where it's all glamour, that you watch a war film on TV, you know. How do you explain students, right, who are most is born when the troubles are supposed to have stopped? How do you explain them about your son being murdered? How do you explain about your son being buried in close call? You couldn't see his body. Right? You know, things that the students would take for granted. If somebody in their family died, they'd go and pay their respects at a wake, so they do a coffin. So, how do you explain that to them? How, you know, and it's those points that we're trying to get across to you, right? It wasn't just the Republicans and unionist people fighting and people being murdered. It's what comes with it, right? And it's horrifying, right? If you spent a day maybe with a family suffering, and like I said, myself or the Raymond's anniversary, but with Michael and John and Cathy, right? The day before and that morning they get out of bed, what they're going to do, right? And it'll bring it home, and it brings it home in a way you see and feel the pain and how raw it is, even 30 years, 20 years, or 40 years afterwards. You know, nobody can teach you that at university, and the only people who can show you are the victims. You know, and see, for me personally, looking out here today, you know, one way, I wish I wasn't here, for my son to be alive, but I'm glad when I see so many students come and the interest. And I hope that the one sitting here today has learned a lot about what it's like to be a victim and what we're going through.
Thank you. There's a lot of people wanting to get in, but I only have time for 2 more questions, very quick. We've got 5 minutes left. This gentleman with the beard, and then this gentleman here, then we'll hand them over and then let them close. So, go ahead.
I'm currently engaged with the law school here, and I thought that was a fascinating discussion from a range of perspectives. But trying to sort of concept or other and meet together on the panel, the issue that the victims commissioner isn't the victim themselves, and also this idea that the Spain, the victims commissioner was a victim of that violence, and people that give him a better sort of gravitas, if you like. Is that not problematic? I mean, in the Spanish situation, certainly the victims of state violence are treated very differently under the legislation than victims of other violence, for example. And then secondly, is there a figure, if a victim were to be appointed as victim commissioner or to these posts, is there a victim figure that everybody would be comfortable with or could agree to? Because one of the issues here traditionally has been if somebody is appointed to a post, well, they represent a particular community, whether that's the nationalist community, whether it's the security force community. And do the panel think there's any particular figure that they have in mind that would be able to resolve that, or do they think at all that that can be resolved?
Thank you. It could be pithy, if possible. Yourself, please.
And this might be an appropriate question to finish with. My name is Cathy. I'm a PhD researcher at the Transitional Justice Institute at Ulster University. And as I'm talking to people, I'm here because I have an obligation and a duty to listen to you guys and to get your stories. I grew up through the Troubles, but there's no way, despite what Kimberly might say, that I can call myself a victim of the Troubles. But I grew up here, so I've got a responsibility to listen to you. And as I'm listening to the other people, I hear people talking about this notion of closure for victims, and I'd love to know what you think of that whole idea of closure.
Thank you. So who'd like to start? Raymond, we'll go that way.
Well, I'd love to know what the closure is. We heard that over the years, and Eugene too, you know, and a smile about it, you know, and Senegal saw it as, we hear this fancy word closure, and we hear it usually from political people and some paramilitary reps, who, community workers. I haven't a clue what closure is, because if the people were arrested the day for my son's murder and brought to court next year and sentenced to life imprisonment, and the policemen who included one were sentenced after her, we have no closure, right? Because nobody's ever explained what closure means, you know, and so it's a question that Eugene's sitting there too, smiling at it. It seems to be a nice way of saying, well, will it just go away now?
Yeah. Cathy, would you like to maybe the issue of is there a figure you can think of?
Same as Raymond, I don't think there is closure when you lose a loved one through murder. There's a difference with truth and justice, and you can maybe pick that part. You can close that down. And I do think we should be able to grieve our family members and have the answers that we deserve as citizens. But closure, no, closure doesn't come. And not just because we're victims of the Troubles or anything else. I don't think closure comes to anybody. It's lost somebody close to them, learn to live with it and deal with it. But for all of us here, we're not getting time to even grieve for your family properly, because you're fighting a battle, an uphill battle, and nobody's prepared to help you out there.
Mike, could you have any comment about the question of, is there a figure you could think of that
I don't know, but I think it should be put out to victims. You know, even if they name so many, but give the victims the choice of who's going to stand. You know, I think they should have a say in who's going to represent them. I personally wouldn't know anybody that could do it, but somebody that's qualified to do it and somebody that understands it, but give the victims a voice in picking a victims commissioner.
Michael? Yeah.
Well, you know, I would say you're quite right. You don't need to be a victim to be a good victims commissioner, because we had Catherine Stone, and I think she was an excellent victims commissioner. But I think that does bring another dimension to it if you are a victim. I think that's important. But to go back to the Spanish situation, You're quite right. You know, the vast majority, there was almost or over 900 murders from ETA, and on the right wing side, which you mentioned, there wasn't as many. That doesn't negate the fact for the victims' families themselves. But I can only speak for my own experience. The auditorium said to me, "This guy must be doing something right. He must be supporting victims," and that's why I think it's important. But on the issue of closure, I think somebody earlier on might have said, even within families, there's different. Grief is a very personal thing, and how you deal with it is entirely personal to you. I think that I've seen families split on this issue because some people would move forward faster than others. So it's a natural thing. It's a natural process. And let me just tell you this experience that I had. My mother and father they were moving from one house to another, and I was giving my father a hand to pack up stuff. And there was a little Christmas charm hanging up in the garage, and we were gathering everything up, and I knew that this charm was Huey's. So I says to my father, I says, "You know, what about this?" He says, "No, we'll just leave it there." And that was the point where I think he moved. And I think that point will come to all of us at the right time. But I think closure, when we feel that justice has been denied, I think that even justice in itself brings a certain amount of closure. My life over the past almost 20 years has been doing things that I really didn't want to do, but I felt that I couldn't do anything else. And once I get the answers, as a bereaved parent, I've done as much as I possibly can, and hopefully I can accept that and then pick up where I left off 20 years ago, because I've got a life, I've got things that I want to do, things I would like to do. So that's, you know, for me, that's the issue around closure.
John?
All right. Just on the first thing, the person who would lead, to be the victim's voice, and just like Michael has said, I was going to say the same. There was a person, Catherine Stone, a person who made decisions immediately that didn't ask for advice from anybody else. I don't know for a fact there was decisions made when we had met her many years back, and she didn't need advice from anybody else, didn't take advice from anybody else, but she done a great job. And it just to disagree on Raymond on that, the head of that there, but it needs to be victim centred. That the whole organisation needs to be victim centred, but for to lead it, it doesn't need to be a victim. But on the, it's not a word that us victims would really like to say about closure, because it's hard to define. And I know Michael and the rest of the panel's the same. What we are doing at the moment, we wake up in the morning and think of our campaigns. We go to bed at night and think of our campaigns. And during the day, your ideas come into your head of our next step and discussing our next step. So for the end game for ourselves is the end of our campaign, as far as we can take it, where it goes, where we have campaigned, we've gathered evidential documents and collated evidence from the families. We were burdened on doing it ourselves, even till today. There's still no police investigation, and our end game for that there would be the evidence that we have gathered and others who helped us along the way will put forward, and if there's evidence there to prosecute certain individuals, and it's just not a one-sided thing. My brother was murdered by the IRA 2 years after my father, and I had campaigned, and the family's campaigned for truth and justice around our Bernard as well. It was a 15-year-old who was murdered by the IRA, and again, I would hope that the evidence was brought forward there, for my father and my brother should be put forward, and if there's people to be prosecuted, I would welcome it.
Thank you. I think we'll call the meeting to close, and I'd like you to join me in thanking Raymond, Cathy, Michael and John.